When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
All right, hello YouTube. Welcome back to the Grease Comedy YouTube channel. Today's video, we are going to be taking another look into another character in A Song of Ice and Fire, and in day 20, we will be looking at Gendry. Now, Gendry is another fascinating character, kind of similar to Marwyn in a lot of ways, where there doesn't seem to be a clear route for the character of Gendry, given the fact that in the show, they went a very different route with Gendry, right? They kind of combine his story with Edric's, and that is not the case at all. Whereas in the show, Gendry is set free by Davos, and he basically lives out at King's Landing until, unfortunately, the later seasons of Game of Thrones, and he gets wrapped up in that horrible plot north of the Wall. Here, that is not the case whatsoever. At this point of the story, we've seen him lastly through Brienne's eyes, as he was smithing and or protecting kind of these orphans group at the Crossroad Inns, which has been attacked multiple times at this point. And Gendry is someone that still doesn't know his parentage. He doesn't know that his father is Robert Baratheon. He's someone that, you know, has been very much changed by the Brotherhood without banners, but he also seems to be somewhat discontent, where when we saw him join in Storm of Swords with Arya when they were with the Brotherhood without banners, he seemed to like their ideals and respect their brotherhood, and it wasn't like he was necessarily a slave like he was at like Harrenhal or even at King's Landing. He was just another brother, and he's even knighted by Beric Dondarrion. And so when we see him in A Feast for Crows, he's taken the Lord of Light instead of the Faith of the Seven, and he seems to be someone that, again, is very wary, suspicious, and albeit doesn't seem very happy. Now, if you think about the difference in the Brotherhood without banners at this time, the Brotherhood without banners has changed leadership. They've gone from Beric Dondarrion, the person that basically got Gendry to join the Brotherhood, to now Lady Stoneheart. And the fascinating part about this is that, well, Lady Stoneheart would know that her kids are basically alive, at least Arya and Sansa anyway, and Gendry would have information into that as well. But this is a video about Gendry, not about Arya or Lady Stoneheart. But the fascinating part about Gendry, very similar to, I think, other people in the Brotherhood without banners, is that I think he would very much be against what the Brotherhood has become. Instead of being, you know, a group of brotherhood and trying to protect the innocent, they've become a group hell-bent on revenge and avenging the Red Wedding. They've lost their way and or purpose, and that seems to have some effect on Gendry. Well, at least I guess my speculation into the character anyway. But the problem with Gendry is, well, what is his real relevance? Could we see him interacting with the character of Brienne again? It's very possible. Gendry does save Brienne's life, killing Biter while he's basically eating her alive, putting a spear through his neck. So that could come up once again, and maybe we even see Gendry refusing to be part of this Revenge Red Wedding or Red Wedding 2.0, whatever you want to call it. And maybe that's something that catches the eye of Brienne, and because Brienne herself already was getting to the bottom of his parentage, because she almost thought he was Renly. Now, he does look a little bit more like Robert in terms of muscular and build than Renly, but he has that same prototypical Baratheon look. And so I do think that Brienne will be the person eventually that will figure those things out and tell Gendry who his father is, probably being Robert. And now the question will be, where does Gendry kind of go from there? And I think he will stay in the Brotherhood without banners, because I think they're going to find a new purpose. I think Winds of Winter will be about reshaping, you know, what they have become, very similar to Arya. And so I do see Gendry being part of the Northern plotline like he was in the show, where he actually ends up being part of the North and supporting Jon and all these things. I think that still makes a lot of sense, given where Gendry is as a character, wanting to protect, you know, the weak and the orphans and all that stuff. You know, going with the Brotherhood without banners to fight the others in this threat. He also believes in the Lord of Light, so that would maybe implicate him to, you know, doing the Lord of Light's will and facing down the threat of the others and of death itself. That all seems to be very likely. I think Gendry will also meet with Arya once again, given that Arya will probably be linked to the Brotherhood without banners storyline with Lady Stoneheart, you know, herself. I think Gendry will have a very, you know, newfound respect for Lady Stoneheart, because this is, you know, Arya's mother, and Arya is probably going to kill Lady Stoneheart within the Winds of Winter, if you believe that anyway. I've talked about this in a couple of videos, but Gendry, I think, will be almost an extension of what I talked about in that Lady Stoneheart and Brotherhood without banners video, like with Thoros. I think Gendry is somebody that very easily by the end of the story could be the person leading the Baratheon line. Now, that is contention. There is contention with that idea because there still is a character like Edric Storms. Stannis Baratheon is still alive, but I do think Stannis is going to die in the north, and Edric Storm's a little bit more difficult to predict, given that he's technically in exile or hiding right now, but I believe Varys knows where he is, or at least Illyrio does, and I think he could be easily involved with the young Griff plot. And so in the show, we saw Gendry get basically made Lord of Storm's End by Daenerys herself, which was, I think, a good move to try and tie the Baratheons back to the Targaryens. I think the same could be done here, but in a different way. Edric Storm, I think, will be used to support young Griff and not in opposition of him. And so Gendry, I could very easily see somebody being on the flip side, being somebody that, goes with Daenerys and Jon and that faction, just like in the show. But in this case, him actually being made Lord of Storm's End because he's not with young Griff. He's actually with Daenerys' side of things. I think that could be possible. Now, the really interesting part of this would be, okay, so if we get to the end of the story, like in the show where they have this council and they have to pick, who becomes king, well, Gendry is a very clear option, right? He would be the son of Robert Baratheon. The Targaryens would mostly probably be gone at this point if young Griff, Daenerys, both of them die. Maybe Jon lives, but I don't think Jon's future is sitting on the throne. Maybe you turn to somebody like Gendry if Edric Storm dies because of his blood. I don't think Gendry will want that. I think Gendry, if he becomes Lord of Storm's End, I don't think he'll lust for more power or want to be king. I don't even think he'll really want to be, the Lord of Storm's End, but I think because of there not being anybody there and picking up the duty that he had for his father, I think it makes a lot of sense to then make somebody like Gendry the Lord of Storm's End by the end of the story. But I think Gendry is definitely in kind of a side role, especially given the fact that, there's so many characters in the Riverlands. What is his true focus? And George has made it really apparent that we don't have much focus on Gendry whatsoever. We see him very briefly in one chapter in A Feast for Crows. We don't see him again in A Dance with Dragons. It's very unclear how much we'll see of him because he doesn't even go to this, Lady Stoneheart and Brienne meeting. So will he even be involved with any of the plotting going on at this Revenge Red Wedding? It's very possible he may not, right? He may just be staying guard at this, Crossroad Inns. And so that's another key point of it. It doesn't even seem like George himself necessarily is focusing in on the Gendry character at this point of the story. So again, Gendry is a tough one. I think this could go either way. We could actually see a good amount of him, through other characters like Arya and Brienne, based upon what is still there left to be discovered with the character of Gendry. But I also think the flip side is also true. We could barely see Gendry in the rest of, the next book, and it wouldn't surprise me that much. But let me know what you guys think about the character of Gendry. Do you think he will end up being the Lord of Storm's End and, legitimized by the end of the story? Or maybe not. Maybe he just stays as somebody like, Dunk, an ordinary person trying to make a living and being a good weaponsmith or armor smith or whatnot. But I hope you guys all enjoyed, and in the next video, in day 21, we'll be talking about a very interesting one, and one of my favorite ones, which is why I kind of left it for kind of the week of Christmas or getting closer, the Children of the Forest and Bloodraven. I didn't really talk about them too much in the first year that I did this. I did have Bran, but I didn't really, again, my opinions on Bran have changed a lot from that first year, which is why I thought this event would be really cool, because still talking about the same plot lines, but there's different thoughts that I may have. And so where I think characters could go may be vastly different. So I'm really excited for, you guys to see tomorrow's video, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Bye, guys.